everyone, so it is Friday and I would like to get back to doing Friday reads. I was doing this for a few months and I was enjoying just kind of like casually talking about the things that I was in the middle of, and I was really enjoying those videos because I didn't feel like I had to edit them as much and I could just kind of chat about my feelings about stuff and not be as like precise and trying to cram everything into like a wrap up. But then we had like, vacation, then school starting and all that stuff. So I haven't done them for a while. So want to get back into it. So I'm going to be talking about the things that I finished or started reading this week, or I'm in the middle of reading this week. And really I haven't finished much of anything. I finished one book in this whole month so far. And I don't know if it's because I'm just starting new things or I haven't been carving out as much time for reading. And it just is happening that way. Sometimes that happens, especially we're transitioning to like, the kids being in school and figuring out that schedule and all that. But it is in the middle of Middle Grade Magic, which is a readathon I'm hosting where we're reading middle grade books. So I'm going to talk about those books first because the only one I finished so far is a book for that. I finished Empty Smiles by Katherine Arden, and this is the last book in the Small Spaces quartet. And this one was really freaky. It's a pretty short book, actually. Like there's a lot of extras in the back of this. There's only like 200 pages. And so I could have probably finished it in like one day, but I couldn't read it after dark because it really was creeping me out. As you could tell, there are some like creepy clown things going on. I can't tell you details since this is the last book in the series, but these books, like they go back and forth. Like some of the books in the series haven't been really scary for me as an adult, but then other ones have really freaked me out. And this one really freaked me out. And I'm glad to be done with this, to wrap it all up. I had a good time reading this and only reading it during the day because it was freaking me out. And I don't know if that's just because the whole creepy clown thing speaks to like personal, like scary things. Like the only ones that I've been scared of so far have been ones that actually like freaked me out for real. So that might be part of it. And then the things I am in the middle of for that readathon is my daughter and I are reading The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. We had read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian as a family. Like me and my husband and my older daughter read it together after my youngest went to sleep. And then I asked her if she wanted to continue. It's been several months since we read Prince Caspian, and she said she did want to continue. And so we are reading this together and enjoying it so far. I don't remember liking this one as much as I am enjoying it now. Like I feel like in my mind, all I can remember is Eustace, their cousin, being so obnoxious. And yes, he is obnoxious, but I am enjoying kind of the interaction and like their time on the boat and the adventure. This is definitely more of an adventure story than the first two, and I am enjoying that. I'm like the kind of like the traveling and adventuring to the different islands around Narnia. And then the other thing that I am reading is The War That Saved My Life. Finally getting around to this. I feel like everybody has read this book. It's one of those middle grade books that like so many people have read and raved about. It takes place during World War II, during when they were evacuating kids from London, and we're following a girl who has a club foot and kind of her experience with that. And like there is like child abuse in this. Her mother was abusive, and so she got to escape that abusive situation. So we're dealing with the war and all the hard parts about the war, but she is actually being saved by being like, evacuated from London. And I'm really enjoying this. I'm like a third of the way, and this is reading so quickly. Like I just picked it up and read, I've only picked this up in 2 sittings. And so each time I read a big chunk, and just like her writing flows so well. I've never read anything else by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. So based on this, I'm enjoying her writing and I'd like to try something else by her. And then the last thing for middle grade magic that I'm reading currently is Amari and the Night Brothers. This is a reread, but I wanted to reread it because I just got the second book from the library and I just wanted to refresh myself on the characters and what happened at the end of the first one. So I'm moving my way through this pretty quickly. I'm like 100 pages in, so I don't know, I'm like probably a fourth of the way through the book and just kind of enjoying being back in this world. I really loved this book the first time I read it. It was 5 stars, and I'm enjoying it again, being back with Amari and experiencing this whole like kind of Men in Black kind of supernatural agency. It's a lot of fun. I would recommend it if you haven't read it yet because it's been a good time. And then kind of like the adult books that I am in the middle of, I am still reading Les Mis. I have updated you, if you've watched Friday Reads in the past, that I've been reading this all year long. And finally my bookmark shows I'm making very good progress. We're, I think is that like 65%, I would say, maybe around there of the way through. And it goes back and forth. Sometimes I really enjoy it, and other times we hit a lot of really boring patches, and it's like a struggle to keep going. But I'm at that point where I feel like the momentum is going and like pushing us towards the end of the story. So I am excited to continue to read that and finish it and say, I have finally finished this chunker of a book. And overall, I think I'm enjoying my time reading that. It's just that like there are parts that just kind of like drone on and on. So I wouldn't say it's like my favorite classic, but I am glad that I am in the process of reading it. The other book that I am reading is Kai Kay. I had to remember how to pronounce her name. And this is a mythology book. It's based on Hindu mythology, a character that's in the Ramayana, and kind of like telling it from her point of view. And I am quite a ways into this, so like probably 70% of the way into it. And I am enjoying it, but it is very slow moving for me. Like I feel like I've been reading this book for so long. I think I've been reading it for like 2 weeks, and even though I'm reading a lot at once, I've been devoting a lot of time to this one. It just seems to just go slowly through it. Like I said, I am enjoying it. It's not that I am like bored by it or finding it a struggle to read. I just don't know what it is about it. It's just not really a fast-paced book. It's just taking me a while to get through it. And can you give me like a couple more minutes? All right. And the last section of books I'm reading, my older daughter and I are doing like a history lesson right now. I used to homeschool her, and now she's in public school, but they don't really do history in like second grade in public school. And she really wanted to continue her study of history because that was one of her favorite things of homeschool last year, was doing ancient history. So now we're moving into the Middle Ages, and our first kind of topic that we are doing is the Golden Age of Islam. So that's kind of like what our like textbooks are revolved around. Textbooks, I mean, they're like nonfiction books for kids, and then we do have kind of like a textbook, but it's very narrative style, but it's talking about what was happening at that time in the Islamic Empire and everything. So that's kind of the focus. So whenever we're focusing on civilization, we try to read some like myths and folklore from that. And so we are doing the Arabian Nights. So this is the one that I'm reading with my daughter, and this is one I am reading myself. And the one I'm reading with my daughter is definitely targeted at a young audience. She's 7, and I would say this is, depending on the amount of violence your kid could take, this is very like low on the violence, but people still die. Like the Arabian Nights has a lot of stories with, you know, people dying, but there's no like graphic pictures, and like the description of the deaths might be like, and like they were talking about like the thieves surrounded him and killed him quickly. So it's stuff like that. Like they're talking about killing somebody, but it's not like they're describing in detail how they do it. So I feel perfectly comfortable reading this to my 7-year-old. So it just depends on the age, you know, like what the sensitivity of your child. But we've been having a lot of fun. I don't know if you know much about the Arabian Nights, but you know, kind of the way it's framed in here is this woman, Scheherazade, you know, is like telling stories to her husband every night, because he's been like killing his wife, like marrying a woman and then killing her in the next morning. And so she's telling him these stories in order to keep herself alive, like, you know, to be like, oh, you can hear more of the story tomorrow, or you could hear another story tomorrow. And my daughter just thinks that is so fun. Like she just keeps like talking about how she's tricking him, she's so clever. And it is so much fun to see how she is like totally on the side, you know, like on Scheherazade's side, and be like, you go girl, you tricked that guy, and like her telling the story. So it's been fun reading that with her. And then I'm reading this one, which is also like meant for children. Like it's not an adult version necessarily, but it's for older. So like I would not read this to my 2nd grader, because it does have more details about kind of like sexual encounters, and the violence is a little more firmly stated in this one. And but I would say this is probably more for like a middle grade audience. So my daughter is 2nd grade. I don't think that this is necessarily appropriate for that age. I would do this more like 10-year-olds maybe as the youngest, just depending. But like, yeah, this is probably more for like a middle grade audience, not like a lower elementary school audience. But as an adult, I'm enjoying that it has a little more detail than the other one does, more stories in it, and like the artwork is nice too. So that's what the version I'm reading right now. I will probably read an even more like older version, but I just kind of wanted to get a basis in the story before I read something that might have been written a long time ago. Like this is written more currently. So I know that there's like some classic versions of the Arabian Nights for adults that would be maybe have language that's harder to read. So I just wanted to start off with something a little easier. But yeah, so that is what I have been reading this week. I'm really excited to continue middle grade magic, hopefully finish up those middle grade books that I had started so far this week and actually like finish some things this month. I'm just feeling very distracted because of like my kids going to school and like everything is different. You know, it's a whole new schedule to go with that I feel like I'm pulled in a lot of different directions. So I keep wanting to pick up new things and not necessarily finish things, which I know is something that I've done a lot in the past. Like I am just a mood reader and I just pick up a lot of things, but especially right now, I'm feeling very like all over the place in my everyday life. So I feel like I'm also doing that in my reading life as just like, I need a stress relief. So like, I just pick up whatever I feel like in the moment, read a few chapters, put it down, pick up something different the next time. So that's kind of like why there's so many different things happening. But that's it for me for this weekend. I will see you next time. Bye.